You were saying that most people have been following Satan this entire time while they thought they have been following Jesus.
Facts. My personal opinion is that the Bible is orchestrated and remixed in a way by this entity in order to lead human beings to their own demise. And that human beings themselves have been following and worshiping Satan this whole time. I began to do this whole report is how many people were really being killed by God and versus how many people were being killed by Satan. Approximately 3 million people were killed by God in the Bible, and Satan didn't kill anybody.
Oof.
And I was going, I just can't believe that this book is 100% about the creator of the universe. I believe that there's a God, but I also believe that the entity being written about in some of these texts is written by men and remixed by men. What is God? God is a frequency.
Yeah.
And it's our job to tune in. We've attributed God to a giant white
Sky
man.
Daddy.
Sky Daddy with the white robe, the big beard, and the magic wand to
Yeah.
grant all of our wishes. And we want to turn God into a slave versus being in the same frequency with that energy and understanding that that energy that exists throughout the entire known universe is also inside of every atom in your body. If you're going to rely on this one book for your eternity, we got a problem here. And you spend your life defending a false identity. Most people have no clue who they are.
Okay, dive into it, Billy. How can people uncover themselves?
The first step is
Welcome to Vaught Empowers Talks, where we don't just scratch the surface, we dive deep into the lives of some of the world's most influential change makers. I'm your host, Brandy Harvey. But before I introduce my guest for today, I need you to go ahead and do me a favor. I need you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss your daily dose of inspiration and motivation. Now, I don't never give a little preface to these interviews, but I feel like this one might buckle your seat belts for this one. This is going to take y'all into a whole other dimension today. Billy Carson is the founder and CEO of Forbidden Knowledge Incorporated, the 4-time best-selling author of the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, Woke Doesn't Mean Broke, the Epic of Humanity and Fractal Holographic Universe. Mr. Carson is also the founder and CEO of Forbidden Knowledge TV, a conscious streaming TV network, the host of the Forbidden Knowledge podcast, and the co-host of Biohack Your Best Life podcast. Among his most notable achievements, Billy is the CEO of First Class Space Agency based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Recently, Mr. Carson earned the Certificate of Science with an emphasis on neuroscience at MIT and has a certificate in ancient civilization from Harvard University. He is also a writer and contributor for Entrepreneur Magazine and the winner of the 2022 Stellar Citizens Award. Billy Carson believes you are more powerful than you even know, and they fear the day you discover it. Vaught Empowers Talks welcome husband, father, researcher, thought leader, and global teacher, Billy Carson, to the show.
wow, thank you for that amazing introduction.
I am like so excited to have this conversation with you. I think you are one of those people that gets us all to think deeper, to dive deeper, to go deeper into things that we probably never even thought we were going to tackle.
Yeah, well, that's the ultimate goal is to, I think, question everything, not in a way where you're challenging just to be a rebel, but to actually really question things and force yourself to look for the answers to those questions. And as I began to do that, I wanted other people to do it. I didn't want to be the only one that I felt like was gaining a certain level of knowledge, because if I hoard the knowledge and I'm the only one with it, what good does that do the world?
Yeah.
Knowledge is not power, but the application of knowledge is power. And I want people to get knowledge and then apply it in their lives.
I love when you say the application of knowledge is power, because this has been a real journey for you. 1977, you're 7 years old, and you have your first encounter with extraterrestrial life.
Yeah, it was weird. I was just out in the backyard. As you know, back then, no 4 channels on TV. And the 4th channel, you had to really tune it in. You might not even pick it up that day.
And kids actually played outside. You
Played
know, you
outside.
said something that's like, that's like a long gone thing.
Listen, no video games, no cable TV.
Yeah.
Play outside. And I'm looking up in the sky watching airplanes go over, because they amaze me that an airplane can travel fast. You know it's traveling fast, but when you look up at the sky, it's moving slow. And as this airplane is going over, I'm watching how long it takes to clear the horizon, and I'm back in my backyard doing flips and all kind of stuff, playing in dirt. And one time I look up and I see this object that clears the horizon in seconds, not minutes, and it just blew me away. And I went, wow, what was that? And then it came back and then it stopped, but this time much lower. And then it just hovered silently, glowing orb, a little bit longer, elongated than an egg, but not as long as a cigar, kind of in the middle. glowing metal-ish type, and it just went pew, and it was gone the way that it came in, opposite direction. And I was blown. I ran in the house. I said, Mom, you won't believe what I just saw. I described everything to her, and that's when she said, she just stayed calm. Sit down, son, let me tell you something. There's been more advanced beings on this planet. She didn't say aliens, she said advanced beings on this planet in the ancient past, and everything that's been done has already been done. There's nothing new under the sun, which is from Ecclesiastes in the Bible. And she told me that there were ancient airports, and these beings used to live on top of mountains. She said, you need to go to Machu Picchu, which I made one of my life's goals, and when I finally got there, I understood. And that's why I dedicated my first book to my mom.
Yeah.
But that was in the 70s, and she had this knowledge already.
That is the thing that fascinated me the most, because, oftentimes we, think of Black mamas, who are definitely Christian evangelicals, who are like, that's not, no. We don't do that. That's not of us, all the things. But your mom was so open, and she had, such a receptive, life to say, let me tell you about this.
Yeah. And her knowledge was just based on her own research.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of influence about aliens and UFOs in the 1970s. She clearly had some experience, had learned some things on her own, and done some of her own research and come to her own conclusions. But that pretty much opened me up to be a person that was open. I had already come to some conclusions just in doing, and my father would make me do book reports on the biblical text, on the Bible.
Yeah.
On book reports on the Quran, book reports on the encyclopedias. And so I already began to see different things that contradicted each other within a lot of information. So my mind was already kind of forming a lot of questions. But when she told that to me, it really then truly opened me up to explore and not be afraid to ask questions and seek answers.
Yeah, because by 12 or 13, you were now questioning the contradiction of the Bible.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of contradictory information, because you hear that God is good all the time.
And all the time.
And as he was then, he is now.
Yeah.
But then I'm going, I just did a book report in the book of Deuteronomy. It wasn't that good because...
I want you to go here, Billy, because I love this conversation that you have about the book of Deuteronomy.
A lot of people were, being sent across different parts of the world, in my opinion, the world, but in the biblical text, let's say regions, to go and destroy other people. In the book of Deuteronomy, God himself orders people to go out to other locations, to other towns and cities, and it could be for any reason. One reason was because one person there spoke ill against me. One person. So God tells his team of warriors to go out, kill the women, kill the children, burn down the city, and bring the spoils of war back to me. And I'm going, wait a minute. Why does God need spoils of war?
Yeah.
Why must women and children die? And it even says that if you find any virgins among them, you can keep them as your wives. Now we have, we have abduction, we have false imprisonment. And I'm going, this don't sound like a great entity or a great being. And so as I read more into it, I see other areas in the biblical text where, man, this sounds like a great entity or a great being, someone that you definitely would want to be a part of or be a part of you. But then in other areas, there was like a lot of murder, killing, and torture. And so I began to do this whole report is how many people were really being killed by God and versus how many people were being killed by Satan. And as I got through my entire report, my complete research, which took about 3 years, I discovered that approximately 3 million people were killed by God in the Bible, and Satan didn't kill anybody.
Oof.
And I was going, I just can't believe that this book is 100% about the creator of the universe. I believe that there's a God. Let me preface this. I believe that there's a God, and I believe that God exists. I think that the quantum physics proves that we're living in a creation and that we're all imbued with divine energy and frequency, which I believe can be used for good or can be used for bad. But I also believe that the entity being written about in some of these texts is written by men and orchestrated by men and remixed by men in order for men to implement and put their boot on the necks of others for various different reasons, whatever their agenda is. If you're a creator that's creating universes and creating life and has all this omnipotence and omniscience, why in the world would you say, let me fly back to this little planet, this blue dot in the suburbs of the Milky Way and imbue these people to go torture and murder and kill women and children real quick before I get back to creating some stuff?
Yeah.
It just doesn't add up. So what it tells me is that a lot of the text in the Bible is manufactured by human beings.
Well, I mean, let's talk about King James.
Yeah.
King James. King
Well,
James. Let's
yeah.
talk about it.
King James' #1 best-selling book is his book on sorcery and witchcraft.
I know.
Okay, so that's what he really was known for. A lot of people don't know that that's his best-selling book, not the Bible.
Yeah.
King James also was a pedophile.
A pedophile.
Right, so he's a pedophile. So you're talking about a man that has no real morals, that is into dark energy and dark magic. And then, of course, he's now saw an opportunity to profit from putting this book together. And this book is heavily curated by the Council of Nicaea in King James.
Constantine.
Yes, Constantine, under the Pope's order, to create this, this book, which they call the Canonized Bible, which people have the illusion that it was written in real time. In other words, somebody's following around. Hey, Jesus, say that one more again because I just didn't get that last sentence you said. Hey, Moses, can you repeat what God said to you on top of Sinai? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
The Bible was written long after these people were dead and gone, okay? And again, when it gets down to being a prophet, I can predict that I'm going to pick up this glass of water and then I can pick it up, prophecy fulfilled. You see, so when things happen after the time, after the event has already happened, when you write down things after the event has already happened, you can create all kind of prophecies in there.
I mean, I love this. You know, in your book, you say that the most important lesson, frequency and vibration, have a direct effect on our reality and can even alter current and future events.
That's right. Absolutely. So we're talking about the fact that what is God? God is a frequency.
Yeah.
And it's our job to tune in.
It's our job to tune in. I love when you say that. I love that in your book.
Yeah.
God is a frequency. It's our job to tune in.
We've misconstrued what God really is. We've attributed God to a giant white
Sky
man
Daddy.
With, the Sky
Hey,
Daddy.
Sky Daddy.
The Sky Daddy with the white robe, the big beard, and the magic wand to
Yeah.
grant all of our wishes. And we want to turn God into a slave. Every time something goes wrong, please, God. And we're ordering God and we're ordering Jesus to take care and fix these issues and problems nonstop. And we're trying to enslave what our idea or concept is of God or Jesus versus being in the same frequency with that energy and understanding that that energy that exists throughout the entire known universe is also inside of every atom in your body.
Yeah.
And to know how to walk in that power and command and wield that energy into your life. Instead of hoping, begging, and wishing to begin to understand, you can command your realities. You have a certain level of control, not the massive level where you can create a planet, but because we're a fractal of the God whole, we have a certain amount of power imbued in us, and the proof of that is all around us because we're living in a world that has been manifested and created by humans.
Yeah.
The microphone is created by humans. The clothes I'm wearing created by humans. The camera's created by human beings. All from conscious thought manifested into solid reality, into the third dimension. So we ourselves are co-creators in this reality, and we take it for granted every single day. We think we have no power, but we do.
Like, I'm already like in love with this conversation. We think we have no power, but we do.
Yeah.
In your book, you talk about, in the Emerald Tablets, you talk about how the Emerald Tablets came 36,000 years before Jesus even walked the earth.
Yes.
And Jesus, when we talk about Jesus, he was a student of the Egyptian mysteries.
Yeah.
He learned reincarnation. He learned, what else? In India, right? In meditation.
In India, he learned the mystic arts. In Tibet, he learned Qigong and Reiki, healing with the hands.
Yeah.
Confirmed by the Dalai Lama, by the way, in recent times. As the information has been handed down and passed down from Dalai Lama to Dalai Lama. This was confirmed through also Robert Grant, who visited with the Dalai Lama, verified just a few years ago, not too long ago. And teaching reincarnation all the way back into Egypt. The place in Egypt where he was actually a child is still there. I take people there every single year on tours because now it's like a sacred crypt in Coptic Cairo, and the bed that he slept in is still there till this very day. People travel from all around the world every single year to come see the place where he laid his head. And then there's a map outside the Coptic church that shows his path as he traveled throughout Egypt, learning and gaining more knowledge and information. And then, of course, this information, by the way, people, where's this information? It's in the Gospel of the Holy 12, a little-known gospel that was kept out of the canonized Bible.
I got this book. I have not been able to read it yet. When I was researching you, I saw you talked about this book. So it is on my desk right now to read because I'm so excited to delve into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he disappears at the age of 12 from the biblical text and reappears at the age of 32 in the Bible, where God says, I call my son out of Egypt. More verification that he was in Egypt.
Yeah.
That's exactly where he was. I call my son out of Egypt. He turns up riding on the back of a donkey, declares himself to be the Messiah, according to the biblical text. But the thing that we're missing here is Jesus is just one of many Christs that existed. The term Christ is the Christos, the crystallization of consciousness, is an ancient term that goes back eons, long before. It's known about since the time of the Emerald Tablets that Thoth, talked about when he wrote the Emerald Tablets, and he wrote the Emerald Tablet singular, also, which is located at Cambridge in the UK. The Emerald Tablets themselves, the plural version, is located in the Vatican Archive at this moment. But you can see that the teachings of Jesus are matching up with the teachings of Thoth the Atlantean.
Yes.
And this is crazy because now who is Thoth? Thoth he calls himself an Atlantean priest king who ruled over the land of Kemet. This is before it was called Egypt. Pre-dynastic for 16,000 years. One man ruled over that land. Not according to Billy Carson, not even according to him. This is according to the ancient Egyptians and the Egyptian Kings list, which is located at the back of the Temple of Seti, leading to the Temple of Osirian, or the Osirian Temple, which we were just there a few weeks ago. And so this guy, this being, really, in my opinion, is a man. His teachings in the Emerald Tablets are what I believe that Jesus, or really his name is Yeshua. That's his real name. His name isn't Jesus, by the way. The J is a more recent letter. I believe it was in the 1800s that the J just came to be. So when you're calling on Jesus, you're really saying Isus. And when you call on Isus, you're calling on Zeus.
Zeus. I learned this in your teaching.
Yeah.
You call on Zeus.
You're calling on Zeus. You're not calling on the person you feel is like God or the right hand of God. You're calling on Zeus, which Zeus dates back to the ancient Sumerian tablets beyond the Greeks, translates his name back into either Anu or Enlil, depending on the Babylonian or Akkadian text. So you're calling on some brutal rulers. You're not really calling on the name of Jesus. You're calling on people that masqueraded as gods in ancient times. But Jesus' information in the New Testament of the Bible, as you look at it side by side, which I do in my book, Emerald Tablets, 36,000 years ago, Jesus, 2,000 years ago, you begin to see, wait a minute, he's saying the same thing. This is proof that either that his teachings came from this ancient wisdom, or maybe he is an incarnate of Thoth himself. It could be either of the two. I mean, it's up for speculation, but the words that he's speaking were already spoken tens of thousands of years prior. He's regurgitating something he learned, or maybe he's teaching, in terms of him being the reincarnation of this entity. And people say, well, there's no reincarnation in the Bible. I've done this Bible about 200-300 times back and forward. The Bible says specifically, you will not be spirits without bodies. You will be given a new name and a new body.
Yeah.
And you will not, it says not, you will not be a spirit without a body. And so what does that mean? That means you're going to be reincarnated, just like a video game. You mess around and don't clear the level, you get another chance. Video games are just a fractal of what we're living in, this consciousness that we're living in. We only recreate things digitally that are already innate in our DNA. So, we're talking about the fact that they're talking about reincarnation. And people don't want to admit it. They don't want to dive deep into it because we've been taught the opposite.
Yeah, you say this. I have so many notes, though, because it's like, wow, you have so much information out here. But one of the things you said, when you talk about the message of Christ, you talk about Christ consciousness. It's a second coming in the mind. And you said that if people know too much, they will have too much power and too much independence. This is what disturbs those who try to hold secrets of the kingdom while also trying to control people by that knowledge.
Yes, facts. The whole secret to power and control is to dominate every aspect.
I guess it's like, I don't need those. I guess it's just saying, Brandy, you don't need these notes. You know this information. Listen.
That was a mic drop.
That was a mic drop. It was. Listen.
The secret of control and power and domination is to control the flow of information. Only 5 corporations own all the media companies, and they control the complete flow of information that we see on TV, which is why I don't watch the news, because the news will poison you and will trigger your fear mechanism and have you in fight or flight 24/7.
Yeah.
And once you're in that mode, they can bend you and mold you into any particular way they want. They can make you take the Jabberwocky, you know what
Yeah,
I mean? They can make you, do things that you don't want to do. They can make you argue with your family over right wing and left wing and Baptist and Pentecostal. I mean, they can really control you, and they can take away your rights too. They can easily snatch rights away from you through fear. And so, but that technique is not new. That's an ancient technique that you find in all these ancient texts, tablets, scriptures, papyruses, and even in the biblical text. You discover the fear tactic is the most widely used tactic to control people.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to burn in a lake of fire if you don't take Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. Well, where did this lake of fire come from?
Yeah.
Let's look into that. I did. The Roman Catholic Church added that to the biblical text. You know, we're going to be raptured away while the infidels or the non-believers are just stuck here suffering on the planet. John Nelson Darby, 1830, added that to the Bible as a cliff note, which eventually worked its way into doctrine and teachings.
Let me tell you, Billy, The Rapture, it was a movie that came out when I was like in high school. And when I tell you that movie had me so shook, you know, they watched it as a movie night at church.
I remember it.
Everybody was watching The Rapture, and I just spent every day like, I hope I'm not gonna get caught up in a rapture.
Yes.
But I think what has helped me on my own spiritual journey is that I have not been afraid to question what I believe.
Yeah.
I have not been afraid to question. And most people are not willing to question. They have, taken the program pill and they're just programmed to whatever has been that's been told to them.
Right. Well, you see, they're afraid.
Yeah.
That's the big fear. If I question, that's going to put me in a situation where I'm questioning God. I got to have the blind faith.
Yeah.
The Bible says my people die for a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw the Bible right back on them because there's two sides to the Bible. One side telling you to ask questions, dig deeper, get the knowledge, seek, become a seeker. And the other side of the Bible is telling you to shut up, be quiet, be a good slave.
Yeah.
Even in the New Testament, people are like, there's no slavery in the New Testament. Yeah, there's slavery in the New Testament. The letter to Ephesians says, honor your slave master as you would honor me, talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at here? Who's writing this stuff?
Yeah.
Is a all-knowing, all-loving God who has omnipotent and omniscient powers going to approve a race of people being completely enslaved? And also, is this person who's saying, I'm the master of all creation, going to give chosen people specific lands that they can rule over?
Yeah.
What do you mean chosen people? We're all supposed to be chosen people. We're all human beings, but there's a chosen people within the human race that has this extra benefit. It even talks about the fact that they'll be allowed to the inner gates, while the other people that aren't the chosen ones, you can get to heaven, but you can't come in the gate. I mean, come on. So this is all divide and conquer tactics. This is separation tactics. This is human beings, man, who put their pants on one leg at a time, writing information down to create their own agenda, to propagate their own agenda and put their boot in other people's necks and have this superiority complex above others. It's not the creator of the universe.
I mean, if people even look to how movies, right? Certain movies. The Book of Eli, one of my favorite movies.
Oh, great movie.
Right? One of my favorite movies. But you see why it was so important to find the Bible.
Yeah.
Because if I get it, I need to be the one to have it. How else will I be able to control these people?
I'm the only prophet of God now because I'm the only one with this text, and I'm the one who can teach you the way it's supposed to be. Now I got control, power, and domination. You see, what the Bible's tapped into is the understanding that there's only one force that exists throughout the known universe.
Yeah.
And that force can be used for good or it can be used for evil. Just like in the Star Wars series, there's the Jedi and the Empire, they use the same exact force. It's the only one force. But depending on how you want to manipulate that force, you can destroy people or you can uplift people. If you look at all of these secret societies, the Skull and Crossbones, Illuminati, there's probably another 100 of them that have come out. You track back all the original teachings, they go back to the ancient mystery schools when they were all about love, light, peace, enlightenment, enrichment, higher understandings of sciences and philosophy. And then as these beings that were the ones propagating this knowledge and information disappeared for whatever reason, then these men generations later who had this secreted and sacred knowledge began to continue to propagate it, but realized the power it can have over people, to sway people, to dominate and control people, so they turn dark. Again, the same exact knowledge, but you have a choice. This is a free will universe, evil or good, yin and yang. And that's unfortunately the way a lot of this has gone. And people are today in this current era are still thinking that they're worshiping the creator of the universe in their heart, which is okay. But a lot of the times what they really have been looking at, they've been looking at something that's been manipulated into complete darkness and has them in a state of fear. And a lot of them are only doing this because they don't want to be left out, just in case the information is right. It's talking about self-preservation now versus love. When you have that level of fear and that level of domination over you, there is no love in that. It's an illusion of love based on the fear and based on the hate and also the separation. And that to me is not my God. My God is not into that stuff.
I always tell people, I believe that God is so big and so vast that he would not only make one way to get to him.
Yeah.
And I can't, and really what made me question this is that I was dating somebody who was a Muslim in college.
Okay.
And of course, then I was like, I think I'm gonna join the Nation of Islam or something,
Right.
So I went going down a whole deep dive on the Nation of Islam, right? All the things. But I remember thinking this is one of the nicest guys that I've ever met.
Yeah.
Servant's heart, good to people, kind to people, a loving man. And you're telling me that because he doesn't follow Christ, he's not going to see heaven.
That's what they tell you.
And I knew in college that, wait a minute, this is not it.
Something ain't, the math ain't mathing.
The math ain't mathing. And it really forced me then, because I started going down the seeking of, the Islamic faith and all that, it just started, let me go look at all these other texts. Let me start. So when people come to my house and they come to look at my bookshelf, I got all the texts.
Smart person. You're smart. That's a sign of intelligence.
Yeah.
Because what you've done is you're taking in all the information and you're just discarding what doesn't vibrate with you, what doesn't resonate with your soul.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way that everyone should do it, At my wedding that I had last year, I had Christians, I had Muslims, At my wedding, people are like, this guy's against all. No, I'm not. I love everybody.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to show you there's another way. There's other ways. And the fact that what you're saying is right. One of my greatest friends right now, his name is Muhammad Ibrahim. He's an archaeologist and a scientist out of Egypt. I was just with him a few weeks ago, him and his beautiful wife, Noha. And they're Muslims.
Yeah.
And these are some of the most incredible, most beautiful, and nicest people you'll ever meet in your life. These people will give you the shirt off their back. If I call him right now and say, I'm in Texas and I'm stuck somewhere, he'll hop on a plane and fly from Egypt here to take care of the situation if he had to. And you're talking about people that have pure souls and just incredible human beings. And you're telling me that this man, his heart is not lighter than a feather. He can't make it past the gate. So that's when I started realizing, man, there's just so many contradictions. And I think that if we don't get too upset with ourselves that, oh my God, this guy's saying all this stuff against God. I'm not saying anything against God.
No.
What I'm doing is I'm exposing human beings for what they've done. I'm exposing the agenda-based information, the rhetoric, and all of the dogma that has been pushed on you. Like I always say, when you're born, you're given a name, a race, and a religion, and you spend your life defending a false identity. Most people have no clue who they are. Who is Billy Carson? I had to ask myself that question.
Okay, dive into it, Billy. Okay. Because how can people start to uncover themselves in this process as they walk through life and become seekers and try to attain more knowledge and wisdom? Because that's really our goal, is to attain more wisdom.
Yep. And the first step is facing your fears. False evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
Everything they told you that has got you so afraid to ask questions and look deeper, it's false evidence appearing real. Get past your fears, because on the other side of fear is greatness. And once you get past that initial fear, oh my God, I'm questioning. No, you're not questioning anything. You are doing what you're supposed to do. You're looking deeper. If you're going to rely on this one book for your eternity.
Oh, come on.
One book.
One.
This is your eternity. And I can ask you 10 questions and you can't answer maybe but one. We got a problem here.
Yeah.
Okay. When I ask you questions about this book that you're counting on for your eternity and you don't have the answers to those, but you love God so much. And well, if you love your wife, you're going to know what kind of flowers she liked. You're going to know her birth date. You're going to know her mother, her father's name, her sister, her uncle. You're going to know a lot about your wife, right? Or your husband, because you're in love with them. Well, how come people don't know a lot about the information that's in that book based on the love they're supposed to have with Jesus and God? They only know mostly a few verses that they've been given for decades by the pastor, and that's usually about it, very surface information. So when you dig a little bit deeper, you begin to realize that there's a much grander and much bigger story. And to understand who you truly are, you have to face those fears and you have to begin to ask questions, right? So why is God in one part of the book killing people and in the other part he's supposed to be all love and all? Let me look a little deeper into this.
This is always the thing that always kind of gets me to jump a little bit. My God is a vengeful God, right? My God is a jealous God, right? We've given God humanistic characteristics, right? We've given it human characteristics. And so even when they say, when they talk about people talk about being in relationships, they say, I want a man that fears God, a God-fearing man. And I say, I want a God-loving man.
Yeah.
I want a man that loves God.
Yes.
Because I don't want you walking around scared.
Yeah, I know. Come on.
Well, what we about to do? You jumping. You on the edge.
Yeah, how you going to protect me?
Yeah.
You see, I'm glad you brought that up. And the understanding that this fear is the biggest problem. This is where people don't get it. Like if they can really grasp it, getting past the fear and then getting past the fear and then beginning to ask themselves, well, who truly am I? Because this name was given to me. This faith was given to me. Why is this the only real faith? Why is this the only legitimate one that's going to get me to eternity? Let me start looking into that. Let me do what you did. Let me start reading other texts and other books and other scriptures and papyruses and so on. Let me do some research so I can gain a much broader picture of what's going on. And when they do that, they're going to begin to discover that a lot of the biblical text is coming from older ancient tablets. For example, dividing the waters from the waters, that comes from the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. All right, which is a 6,000-year-old text, but even that version is a copied version from more ancient versions, which go back tens of thousands of years. And understanding that a lot of the Old Testament is the generations of Isis, okay? And where do you get that? Again, from Sumerian cylinder scrolls. So Genesis is generations of Isis, Genesis, the Genesis is the generations of Isis. Why? Because Isis gave birth to the Adamu, thousands of years before the Bible was written. What does Adamu mean? It means first man. So when you begin to realize, like, wow, I'm reading information that's kind of obscure and taken and copied and pasted almost, right, into these papyruses and scriptures that were discovered in caves, and then somebody curated that information and put it all together, there's a much bigger picture. Then you say, well, let me go get the Apocrypha text, all the stuff that was left out of the Bible. And then you start going, oh, man, this is crazy. Then you get the book of Enoch, and you discover angels coming down and teaching human beings how to make weapons and swords so they can cut a man's head off. And you're going, wait a minute, something ain't right here.
Yeah.
And then you begin to say, okay, you'll see that there's a bigger picture that you haven't seen until you now have done the research. And now you can get the understanding that, yes, I believe in God. Yes, I believe in the creator of all. However, some of the information in here might not be it. And I say it because I don't give God a gender. I don't believe that this masculine-based mindset of God is accurate. Okay? Because as far as I know, all life comes from a womb. And so now we've attributed this manly, this gender of a man to this entity, and what has been done to women over eons. They've been completely oppressed and suppressed. Even until this current day, in some of these countries I go to, women are still heavily suppressed. They can't even show their eyeballs. They got to wear full mask and shades.
I was just in Abu Dhabi last week. Yeah. I was just in Abu Dhabi. And, people ask me, like, would you want to live here? I think it's a beautiful place. And, I love the culture and the people. But it almost makes me, like, look at it like, well, a woman has no choice of what she... And then most people say, well... That's her modesty, and that's for her husband, and that's for her, to be at home, and no one should be able to see her, But who said that?
Yeah, exactly. That's more masculine. That's more toxic masculine dominance.
Yes.
And you can see it from the fact of giving the Godhead the masculine energy, and then having the Godhead say, I'm a jealous God, and I'm this, and you better fear me, and I'm going to destroy you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to kill these people. I'm destroying Sodom.
The wrath of God.
The wrath and all these things. And it's like, wait a minute. What happened to all the love?
Yeah.
You have all this power and all this ability to create and all this knowledge, but you can't come down and teach the people in the way that which they should go. If I've got a family, right? I got 6 kids. And if I see my kids doing things wrong, what does a good father do? He steps in and he begins to teach. I don't step in and start smacking and kicking and punching and throwing down and casting out and all that. Get out of my house.
Plagues.
Right. Some people do that, but that's a toxic environment. That's not real parenting. Real parenting is showing love, understanding, and teaching.
Yeah.
So if I'm able to do that in this flesh, in this, lower dimension, a being from a higher dimension with all-knowing power that can create this dimension and many others, can't seem to step in and actually correct things before they go awry, knowing that this person supposedly has knowledge of the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
And that leads me into one more thing before you ask me the next question. The devil is, according to the book, the Bible, Satan is all-powerful. Lucifer is all-powerful, almost all-knowing. He can whisper into the ears of millions of people. He has this, he's not even an angel, he's a cherubim, which is above the angels. Everywhere he went, music followed him, right? And so now, this entity, to be that smart and that intelligent, his IQ has to be in the thousands. Forget hundreds. An average human IQ is 75. Einstein was only 140. This being's IQ has got to be in the thousands, maybe even the tens of thousands. And so you got to tell me that this entity with all this wisdom, all this knowledge, and this high IQ, high intelligence, that has all these powers, is going to follow every word in this book written by human beings, a lower person, a lower entity than he even feels he is, written by human beings to its own demise.
Yeah.
He's going to follow this word for word to his own demise and for all eternity. I seriously doubt that. My personal opinion is that the people who wrote the Nag Hammadi scripts are accurate, that the Bible is orchestrated and remixed in a way by this entity in order to lead human beings to their own demise. And that human beings themselves have been following and worshiping Satan this whole time by calling on Jesus and calling on God, which is really Enlil, Yahweh from the ancient Sumerian tablets, not really truly understanding the real God connection.
Billy, slow down. Slow down. Slow down. It was a power punch you just gave in literally 15 seconds. Yeah. Okay, go back. Yeah. Rewind the track.
Okay.
You were saying that most people have been following Satan this entire time while they thought they have been following Jesus.
Facts. Tower of Babel incident. Thousands of years before the Bible was written, it was Enlil, also known as Yahweh in the modern Bible. Satan, the Lord of Edin, E-D-I-N, coming out of Mesopotamia, also Enlil from the Sumerian tablets, known in the Bible as Yahweh, who shows up to find out what happened here in the garden. How come you got your clothes on now? You see, all these stories go back to ancient times, and you find out the real truth, and you begin to realize that, I haven't really been worshiping the God that I thought I was worshiping, because that God does exist. I'm going to keep saying that God does exist. The blueprint or the fingerprint has been laid throughout all creation.
All creation.
Via the Fibonacci sequence, right? Via pi and phi, mathematics. The language of God is mathematics, because you can communicate with any entity in the known universe with mathematics. That's the language of God. Mathematics can describe and give you a breakdown and communicate with anything that actually exists.
Yeah.
And so that's the language of God.
That's why numerology is so accurate.
Yes.
Because
absolutely.
Numbers do not lie.
Numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
Numbers do not lie. And so, but what is going on here? So we realize, okay, that God itself is the creator of all, and most likely is even higher and outside of the dimensions that exist in the known universe. And can enter in here, but also can leave out of here. So God does exist, in my personal opinion, just based on actual science. People think science and Christianity, spirituality go separate. I think that science and spirituality join together and answer a lot of questions.
Absolutely.
Especially quantum physics.
Absolutely.
The quantum physics is explaining what's happening in the spiritual realm. But when you separate the two, you can't see that. But when you bring them together, you go, oh my goodness, this is a bigger picture here. Now I'm understanding how, when I focus my conscious thoughts on something, how it becomes a manifest into reality, but you can see that through quantum physics and quantum mechanics.
I mean, it's Dr. Joe Dispenza is what he talks about in the supernatural.
Yes.
It's how we heal ourselves, right?
Right.
It's us putting the energy, and that frequency that you talk about. One of the things that you've talked heavily about is the story of creation. I'm going to go back to Genesis.
Yeah.
The story of creation. How can just two people have created 8 billion people? Something would have happened scientifically. There would have been some sort of deformity, some sort of breakdown in DNA because these people were so closely related. So I want you to talk about the creation story.
Yeah, the math ain't mathing again. Okay, if I take two people, like you researched me very well. If I take two people, I don't have enough genetic diversity to create an 8 billion civilization on planet Earth, which is what we have right now, about 8 billion people. 8 billion are not coming out of two. And anyone who breeds dogs, horses, pigs, donkeys, whatever, anybody breeding any animals can tell you, you can't do that. You have to have genetic diversity, or you're going to start to have different disabilities, right? People will be born with club feet, mental disabilities, physical disabilities, sight disabilities, and so forth. So you have to have genetic diversity. You need a pool of people to pull from. When you look at the tablets, again, I keep going back to these because you discover a lot of information that makes sense scientifically. In the Garden of Eden, they had these people there. These people were not just Adam. Adam was only the one perfected version of Homo sapiens sapiens, which is what we are now. But they had recreated more of him. And they had men and women, and they had mating times.
Okay, so when you say they, I want you to describe they.
They are these advanced beings, the Anunnaki, right? The Anunnaki beings that are talked about all throughout time. In the ancient Sumerian tablets, which go back tens of thousands of years, you're talking about the Anuna. In the more recent version of the tablets, and the Babylonian version of the tablets, they added the Anunnaki because they are supposedly, the Ki means earth, and these are the ones who actually took over the earth. And then you have, and also descended from a royal bloodline, which is what it also means, descended from a royal bloodline. And then you have, in the biblical text, you have the Anak. We were grasshoppers in their eyesight, the Bible says.
Because these were
massive beings.
massive giant beings.
Yes,
yeah.
Massive giant beings. In the Egyptian text, they're called the Nituru. They're the beings that came from heaven to earth and turned mud into a kingdom at the time of Zep Tepi. In the Aboriginal verbal handed-down history, they're called the Pleiadians. In the Hopi verbal handed-down history, they're also called the Pleiadians. Two different civilizations, opposite sides of the planet, same exact people. And you begin to see this link between them, and the Greeks and the Romans renamed them their own names, Zeus and Poseidon and so forth, like they always do. They always rename everything. But these are the beings. These are advanced people, and I do mean people. They weren't little green men with antennae. They look like us, and we look like them. They were distinguishable by their size and their mass, but we look like them. And in the Epic of Atrahasis and in the Enuma Elish, two different texts over slightly different time periods, still thousands of years old, you discover that these beings engaged an existing hominid on this planet and genetically tinkered with it, meaning we already had cousins here. They genetically modified these cousins and came up with this version of Homo sapiens sapien. Why? Because they wanted beings that can do the labor and do the work. They were working on their own, according to this text. They were doing what kind of work? Cleaning out the Tigris and Euphrates to create irrigation, creating canals, building cities themselves. And then they got to a point where they said, this work is too hard. This is too much labor. Let's get the existing being on this planet to do the work for us. We'll add our essence to it, and we'll get it to bear the load, exact words. So we became the slaves of these people, and we didn't even know we were slaves, because the best slave is a slave that doesn't know it's a slave, just like we got right now in America. We're working, we're paying taxes, we're slaves. But we don't know we're slaves. We think it's for the betterment of society and civilization, but we don't know that 100% of our income tax from our income goes to pay off loans from the banking, occult of money that doesn't even exist.
Yeah. So
it's fiat currency. It doesn't need the money. It's zeros and one. So it's the same thing going on now that was happening back then, is my point. And so these people began to do the work and do the labor, and they needed a workforce. So they began to make this Eden, this outdoor.
So this is let us make man.
Let us make man in our image.
In our image, and I like this. Genesis 1:26.
Exactly. Genesis 1:26, which comes from where? The Sumerian tablets.
The Sumerian tablets.
And who's the us? These are the people I just described. Not the Holy Spirit and this. No, that's a fabrication by Christianity to try to justify or answer a question they have no answer to. The truth is, it's these people that were here. The Anunnaki, men and women, both in the Anunnaki pantheon. The original pantheon wasn't Greek. The pantheon goes back to the Sumerians coming out of Mesopotamia, which is Turkey, Iraq, and that whole region, leading all the way down into Egypt. So that's what happened. And so these people created us to become the workers. And we we worship them because they had advanced technology from our eyesight. In other words, any less advanced culture, if they meet or are engaged by a more highly advanced culture spontaneously, they will instantaneously deify them. It will happen even today in the 21st century, right now, today.
Yeah.
Let some people show up here, and you're going to see people drop to their knees. Jesus is back. Immediately, without question, right? I mean, they're going to start crying and weeping and everything else. And it's just a guy, it's just a people on vacation from another planet.
Ooh.
You know? And like we talked about earlier before we started this, I think, you know, this big waiting for this return is not what people think. It's the return of the Christ consciousness. It's the return of that knowledge or that level of love and understanding, of empathy and service to others that returns in the minds of the people.
Yeah.
And right now, it's only in a small number of people around this planet. A lot of people think they got the Christ consciousness, but that's an illusion. They don't have it yet.
Why do you say that?
Well, they're following and listening to the dogma. And they don't even understand what Christ consciousness is because they're waiting for it to get here. In other words, they're waiting for this man, this physical being to return and give out new orders.
Yeah. The trumpet has to sound.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not living in the end times. No. I hate to break this down to people.
No.
We're not even close to it. This is the best time to be alive.
You said this is the golden era.
We're getting close to the golden age.
Yeah.
We're getting close to a golden age. The golden age is, and when I say close in geological time scales, it's less than a blink of an eye away, but it's still, for a human being that only lives to 85, it may seem like a long time to think, oh, a couple more thousand, 3 more, 4 more thousand years, but that's a very short period of time. But what's happening is, you look at history. Anyone who studies real history understands that the bubonic plague almost wiped out humanity. The Black Plague almost wiped out humanity. We can go outside right now. We don't see dead bodies laying in the street rotting.
Yeah.
What about the papal inquisitions, where the popes, under the Pope's order, Rome went and tortured and killed and murdered over 80 million people. 80 million people aren't dying right now. And what about the American Holocaust that never gets talked about, where the Europeans came here and slaughtered and killed and tortured over 111 million indigenous natives,
people,
some of which were actually black people, because black people were already here.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, these Holocausts and these genocides have been going on for a very long time, and I can go outside right now. I don't see dead bodies laying in the street. Now, are there wars and skirmishes going on in different parts of the world? Yes. But overall, this is actually the best time to be alive. We're actually living in a perfect time, a time where we're living in the information age, and right now, ignorance is actually your own excuse. If you want to have knowledge, if you want to gain knowledge, if you want to gain wisdom and understanding, it's all available to you. People are walking around with supercomputers in their pockets now. Information travels instantaneously, just as the Hopi said would happen. They predicted this a long time ago, that in the future, they said, information will be connected on a web, a World Wide Web, and it will travel to and fro instantaneously. We're in that era. We've lived to see that prophecy becoming fulfilled. And we're in a time now where we can gain better understanding now more than any time else in history. And we have a lot of cures. Even though we have a lot of stuff that Big Pharma's doing, we still have a lot of cures. I should have been dead from pneumonia 3.5, 4 weeks ago. But I'm alive right now. Why? Because our medical prowess has developed, and we can treat things like this, which normally would have killed people back then. Just 100 years ago, I would have died. Not even 100, maybe 50 years ago, I would have been dead already. So we have to understand, like, we are advancing at an incredibly fast rate. We have technologies. It's the information age. And we have to understand that, man, we did this in 100 years. Now imagine a civilization that is 1 million years ahead of us. In 100 years, we went from a horse, buggy, and carriage to putting remote control cars on Mars.
Yeah.
We have rovers on Mars. We have the Voyager 1 has left and gone into interstellar space. It's left our solar system completely. And imagine a civilization now, these Anunnaki people, who could be 500,000, even 1 million years ahead of us. What it looks like they're capable of doing. You see Elon Musk has the new brain device, right?
Yeah. Oh my God, I have to pick up my notes because, hold on.
Go ahead.
You say something. You talk about this in your book, page 5758, the 2045 initiative, the Avatar Project milestones. Yeah. The challenge for the immediate future is to prepare humanity for its greatest intellectual attainment of higher consciousness transition in history.
Yes. So the 2045 project is something that's been under development for quite some time. And in America, we have something that DARPA has developed called the Avatar Project. And what are these projects?
Which we're living in right now. They're here.
It's here.
They're here.
These projects are, again, what's talked about in the ancient tablets and in the Emerald tablets, for example. Thoth talks about having the capability of going to a place he calls the Halls of Amenti, which I just took people there a few weeks ago in Egypt, where these underground chambers exist.
I'm going on your tour.
You
Just
have to
know
go.
this.
You have to
I'm
go on
going.
the tour.
I'm
It's
going.
mind-blowing.
Yeah.
In these underground chambers, there are these magnificent 800-ton stone, diorite, and crystal granite boxes that are completely empty. They're super megalithic, and they can't be taken down into this location. They have to be manifested there by teleportation or some other method that we don't understand yet. But he said he would put bodies in them, bodies that he would create, by the way, and he would transfer his consciousness from one body to the next and walk amongst men but unlike a man. Okay, that's ancient text talking about incarnating at will into avatars. Now, fast forward, DARPA and the 2045 Project. 2045 Project says, let's transfer a monkey's consciousness into a computer, and they successfully do this.
Yeah.
The monkey's in a computer, body's dead, it thinks it's alive, it's climbing trees, eating bananas, completely unaware that it's moved from one dimension to another. It went from 3D into 2D because computers are 2D. It's living on a computer chip now. And then by 15 or 16, their goal was to transfer human consciousness into a robot.
Into a robot.
All right, which they've already been able to do.
Yeah.
And proof of that is the Avatar Project in America with DARPA. They've been able to connect a symbiotic conscious link from a soldier, in a bunker to a field robot. So the soldier can consciously control the robot, and the only thing that happens if the robot's blown up is the link is broken, but the soldier stays alive. But from the soldier's perspective, it's on the battleground. So you see that we're duplicating what already happened in the ancient past. Most likely they read that text, and they're just duplicating technologies that already existed. And what is the future program, 2045? To be able to do something they can do already now today. I can take a skin cell from you. I can then culture that skin cell, turn it into a stem cell. I can culture that, turn it into a group of stem cells, and then I can put it into an artificial womb and create a synthetic embryo of you.
Yeah.
I can grow that embryo to any age specified, then transfer your mind into the new embryo, into the new person that's really yourself. And so it sounds like science fiction, but when you look it up and look up peer-reviewed science, it's real.
And just for anybody who's listening to this and is like, oh, I don't believe this is a bunch of malarkey or whatever. What I love about your book is that this is such a research guide.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you say it, you drop the link.
Yes.
As soon as you put it, you got the research note to go right there. You can go look it up.
Right.
You can go find it on the World Wide Web, and you can look it up for yourself.
Yeah. And I'm taking you to real science and real mainstream sites. When mainstream is telling you this, you got to pay attention because they try to hide everything.
Absolutely.
So why would they even be telling us this? But just look up synthetic embryos. You see they've been growing synthetic embryos now for about 5 years. They're taking them from stem cells, from a person, skin cell to stem cell to synthetic embryo, and then they claim they've been aborting them. Okay, that's what they're claiming, that they've been aborting them, not letting them grow and develop into full-grown people. But that's what they're going to tell us, of course. But the fact of the matter is, we're doing what's already been done in ancient times. Thoth talks about doing this 36,000 years ago, transferring his mind into new bodies, walking amongst men, rejuvenating other avatar bodies, and for 100 years at a time, he'd go back, jump into another body, which is why he's been seen all over the planet. In Australia, he's known as Thothamabi. In Greece and Rome, he's known as Mercury and Odin. In Egypt, he's known as Thoth. In the other parts of Africa, he's known as Tahuti and Jehuti. In Mesoamerica, which is now Mexico mostly, he's known as Tahuti also, but that's why you have the city of Teotihuacan, which means the city of Tahuti, who comes out of Africa. So he left Africa, went to Mexico. Then all throughout the area, he's Kukulkan, he's Viracocha, he might even be Lord Pakal. Quetzalcoatl is also Thoth from there. So all over the world, this guy can be discovered. To the Hopi tribe, he came down on a fiery dragon. These people traveled the world, which is why you see pyramids all over the world, which is why you see temples all over the world, and you see a very similar construction technique leading back to one master architect.
Okay, I want you to talk about the pyramids because your mother gave you this prophecy that you needed to understand that there were other life forms here walking among us, and you needed to go to Machu Picchu. So When you went there, what did you discover?
When I went there, I discovered that it's virtually would be impossible for a Neolithic civilization or earlier to shave the tops of mountains and build megalithic cities at the tops of mountains. When I looked at some of the stones, which could weigh as much as 1,000 to 1,200 tons.
When I read this in your book, I was like, wow.
Yeah, being taken from supposedly even just under 100 miles away from the top of another mountain where the quarry is located. So you took a stone out of a mountain and brought it down into the valley and took it up another mountain?
Hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
In many cases, hundreds of miles.
Yes. Come on. Neolithic people didn't. Neolithic people were just, happy to make a nice fire and stay safe for the night from wild animals. I've studied Neolithic people, right? Neolithic homes, when you study them, they don't even have doors on their homes. They would put this ladder that they would climb up to go over the roof to climb inside the house, and then pull the ladder up so that wild animals couldn't get to them. No doors, no windows. Only little holes in the wall that led to outside for a little bit of ventilation. And they would burn fires inside of these shacks, and all the soot and the fire would actually literally burn their lungs and kill them early. They have short lives because of burning fires and stuff inside the actual hut. So these people didn't build these structures. These structures were inherited. When I talked to actual homegrown archaeologists from Mexico on some of my tours, and they teach in their university now that the Mayans built nothing. The Aztecs built nothing, that they inherited what was already there. But when they arrived there, everything was already in place. I took that information and started digging even deeper. The dynastic Egyptians, they built nothing. They built some of the newer temples like Luxor, but you can see those temples they look huge, but the stones are cut. So they may have a 8-foot, column could be broken into 4 pieces and stacked and glued together. They're not really one single piece of megalithic stone like in the ancient times. So the knowledge of how to build these structures was lost across time. And the further back you go in time, the more megalithic and the more you see single stones cut into these masterpieces versus in more modern, the dynastic era, you see multiple stones cut up and chopped up and then put together like glue.
Okay, wait. So when you see movies like The Prince of Egypt, right? We've all grown up with the Disney versions of Prince of Egypt, and you got the slaves building these.
The slaves.
The slaves building. It's.
The Israelites built the pyramids. I mean, come on. Okay. No slaves built the pyramid. The pyramid was not built by slaves. Now, when you go back and realize how old the pyramid really is, then you discover the truth about that. People who watch these documentaries and these TV shows and these movies, they get a false understanding of how old, and of course in Christianity, the earth is only 6,000 years old. Well, why is that? Because the tablets are mostly only 6,000 years old. So that's as far back as the knowledge actually goes, according to their poor information. There's a much more vast, broader level of information there, but you have to dig deep for it. So when you go to the pyramids on Giza, you start to see fossils, ocean fossils. There's a video of me online standing out there in the Sahara Desert by magnificent Basilosaurus bones that are like 30 feet long. These are whales, ancient whales. I'm standing around, I'm surrounded by dead whales in the middle of the desert. I've got seashells all around me. Why is that? Because that whole place was flooded by a global flood or either a massive regional flood. And by this flood, it's one of the greatest things that ever happened because by having this flood, we're able to see the erosion. And the erosion can be calculated. How long does it take for limestone to degrade? How long does it take for these different types of stones, diorite and granite, to be able to be eroded by water? So by that method, you can actually calculate a time frame, and you discover that the Great Pyramid is probably 36 to 40,000 years old.
Wow.
Not 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000 years old like they try to tell you. They can't even give you an exact time frame. They always change the date a little bit. The Sphinx enclosure gives you this date as well because the enclosure shows the water erosion lines, which can be calculated. It was even calculated by a professor from Stanford, Professor Robert Schoch. I believe he's a professor at Stanford or maybe some other university, but I believe it's Stanford. But anyway, he came up with 13,000, which is still a great deal further back than any other real mainstream, he's a geologist, has ever been able to state or claim. Why is that? Because you can calculate this with simple mathematics and a computer based on the erosion of the particular stone. You can check the stone on the Mohs scale, and you can figure out what it takes to erode to this level, and you can make a very simple calculation and figure it out. So we're looking at something extremely ancient. Now, in more modern times, people did work on the pyramids. They were refurbishing. The Sphinx has been refurbished dozens of times, if not hundreds, and the Great Pyramid has had damage refurbished on it. And the evidence of this is right there at Giza. There's a place, a temple that was there that has work records of workers.
Oh, wow.
And it has their payroll.
Wow.
And it even has their medical records because they had insurance. If they would
Whoa.
break a bone, now why would you fix a broken bone on a slave? You just get another slave. Why would you pay slaves? They're supposed to be slaves. You don't get paid, but they're getting money. So what's happening is here we see what's been taken as rhetoric and dogma for the purpose of a chosen people to claim all this stuff that they've been claiming versus what is reality. Again, more evidence to me that a lot of the information in that book is remixed.
Yeah.
To what agenda? For power and control, for separation, for superiority complexes and all that kind of stuff. Slaves never touched not one of those pyramids, not one. Matter of fact, people think that the Great Pyramid was built by taking these cookie cutter stone blocks and just putting them together with mud ramps and elephants and logs and all that. First of all, you need more mud than the mass of the pyramid itself. That's number one. So you got to tell me you're going to take the resources of a civilization at that time period and have them gather more mass of mud than the pyramid mass itself? Impossible. The second thing is you're not going to roll these megalithic stones around on palm tree trunks. Okay, they're gonna collapse.
Yeah.
The next thing is each stone is made specifically for the location it's set in. So the Great Pyramid is not what people think. It's an interlocking structure. That means each individual stone is like a piece of a puzzle. Like you buy a puzzle and put the pieces together.
Yeah.
Every piece is different. Same thing with the Great Pyramid. There's no two stones alike. Every stone is like a fingerprint, which means it was created specifically for the exact location. Somebody created an interlocking puzzle of 2 million pieces. There is no cookie cutter. You can't cookie cutter a pyramid.
So this proves that science and technology was extremely advanced. Mathematics was extremely advanced in ways that we really can't even fathom.
We have no idea or concept. There's a shaft inside the Great Pyramid that goes down 65 meters, and then when it gets there, you go another 30 meters down beneath that. This shaft is cut through solid stone. So after the pyramid structure was already built, some type of technology went from the outside of the pyramid in a specific angle, about 65 degrees, straight down through the pyramid, then through the bedrock, over 100 yards. What can cut that? They try to say that chicken bones and copper chisels did that, and a human being can't fit in that particular opening of the shaft. When you get to the bottom area, you can squeeze down there, which we've done. But this shaft is cut through solid stone, a solid stone structure of over 2 million blocks, and something cut it perfectly in a perfect angle, no deviation from the angle whatsoever. So they're trying to say that chicken bones and copper chisels, the rest of your explanation.
So it had to be some sort of, laser advanced technology.
Yes, laser guided advanced technology.
Yeah.
We can also see tool marks. So the tool marks are there. We see tool marks all around Giza, all around the temples, all around the stones that have been left behind. We see advanced tool marks that we can't reproduce today. We don't have the technology that can make those kind of cuts. So in some way, they had technology that was far superior than what we have today. People say, well, where's this technology at? Well, first of all, if I lay a saw, an electric saw, or some type of other machinery outside for 2,000 to 3,000 years, it's gonna just erode.
Yeah.
And don't forget that area was flooded. Number two, completely flooded with it became a massive sea. And the evidence is in all the fossils that you have there. Also, and you read the tablets, these people had a pyramid war. And after this war, they decommissioned these sites. And they took away a lot of the technology. They took the resonating rods out of the grand gallery of the leading up to the king's chamber. They took the capstones off of almost every single pyramid that exists. They broke the technology so that human beings like us wouldn't have access to it. They just found underneath the sands of Giza 200 buried pyramids. But the crazy part is that sand is from about 200 miles away. You go to Turkey, where I just came from another 2 months ago, Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, buried. But when they analyzed the sand and the organic material they discovered came from somewhere else. Somebody brought it there and buried it.
Wow.
You find this everywhere you go. You find these megalithic sites have been buried all over the world. Who buried these sites and why? They've been decommissioned because they had energetic and possibly technological value.
Okay, so one of my favorite albums growing up was Voyage to Atlantis
Okay.
by the Isley Brothers.
Oh yeah, they were ahead of their time.
They were ahead of their time. Them, Earth, Wind, and Fire, all of them, right? And I love the album so much, but Atlantis, right? I'll always come back to you.
Yeah.
And so Atlantis, Lemuria, these are civilizations that were flooded.
They predate everything. Yeah.
So let's talk about these predated civilizations.
Yeah. One of the first civilizations that existed, and I talk about this in my book, The Epic of Humanity, that I co-wrote with Matthew LaCroix. It became a bestseller in encyclopedias, by the way, on Amazon. But this civilization was out by Australia, its own separate individual island. People lived there, and according to the Aboriginal elders, these people had obtained a high level of spiritual technology. They were so highly advanced, they had the capability of telekinesis, psychic abilities. They could move things around with their mind, which is what telekinesis is. They had an advanced city. They had achieved a golden age, the very first golden age on this planet, supposedly. And at some point, like all cyclical civilizations, there was a rise and there was a fall. At some point, something happened. It's not really clear exactly what it was, but the island sunk. There was some type of geological disaster and destruction, and the island sunk, destroying most of the people, but some had made it over to Australia. The Aboriginals claimed that they were seeded on this planet by Pleiadians, and maybe, just maybe, this is a hypothesis, some of these people from Lemuria could have been Pleiadians. And then, then you have the Australian civilization, which these Aboriginals, they had a lot of these same gifts and powers as well back then. And they talk about the fact that these beings had saved them and to preserve them from a galactic war. So it's crazy because, you say, what war was this? And you find it ties to the Pleiadian star system. It's talked about the Hopi. The Hopi talk about this. The Lakota tribe in the Americas talk about this. The Aboriginals talk about this. The Egyptians talk about this. The Sumerians talk about this. So it's not just one isolated incident. And then people fled and became space refugees. Some came to this planet and created Atlantis. So Atlantis came supposedly after even Lemuria. And the Atlantean civilization is the civilization that built these incredible megalithic super ancient structures all over the world and created these multifunctional stone machines, which is what they really did, and developed civilizations of the populations of people to a high level and achieved this almost like a global golden age at one point in the ancient past. And then there was some more, deception and frustration and jealousy and angst and everything else kind of set in. And it was this beginning of a new collapse of that civilization where they went to war. And this war destroyed Atlantis. Now, Atlantis wasn't just a ring city. The ring city was just one capital of dozens that existed. Every single person on Earth is standing on top of Atlantis right now. Atlantis was here in Georgia. Atlantis was in Florida. Atlantis was in Texas, California. Atlantis was in Europe. It was everywhere. And the evidence is the fact that we have the technology and the structures and the same stories globally.
Yeah. There are some people who will doubt all of this information.
Yes, there are.
And what would you tell them?
I tell them, don't believe what I say, research what I say. Take some time out of your day from doing whatever it is, binge watching some Netflix shows or whatever you do that just burns away time, and go and replay this video, write down some keywords and phrases that I've said and begin to look them up. Start going shopping on Amazon, buying some books and some texts. And also get out your passport. If you don't have one, go get one and start getting passport stamps, because that's what I did. I'm on my third passport book because I'm filling them up like you wouldn't believe. 18 times around the world I've been.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I've seen all the ways, not all, but a lot of the sages, wisdom keepers, pyramid priests, temple priests. I go to the people. I go to sources directly to the main people, the homegrown people. And I want to talk to them. I have great conversations with these people to find out what might have gone on, or can I connect any more dots through these people's wisdom and knowledge? And I think that that's the best way to do it, to travel and see things with your own eyes, because I didn't know that the pyramid wasn't cookie cutter until I showed up to it.
Yeah.
When I walk up to the pyramid, I looked at it and I go, oh no, my concept of what the pyramid was built or how it was built has been wrong this entire time. This is in 2014.
Yeah.
This is not a cookie cutter building. Each stone is different, a different size and a different weight, a different dimension and a different cut. So you can't learn that from Google. You're not going to learn that from documentary. They'll never tell you this. So getting out, getting your passport stamps, and doing some research, if you're really passionate about getting to the truth and getting to the bottom of things, you'll invest in yourself. I spent over $3 million traveling this world with no sponsor, 0 sponsors. But if you're passionate about something, you'll find a way.
Yeah. I love that. If you're passionate about something, you will find a way. You touched on it just for a second. You said time does not exist. Clocks exist.
Yeah, that's right.
And so for everybody who feels like we're on a clock,
Yeah.
we don't have any time, time is running out for them, what would you tell them?
I tell them, listen, you're right. First of all, time is an illusion. You have to understand how you prioritize and organize your day. We have a lot of wasted time in our day. Everyone does, whether they want to admit it or not. No, I'm too busy. I got this. Nah, you got more time. You have more time. And we just don't realize that we have more time until we're forced into realizing that we have more time, right? Like, for example, I had a near-death experience, and that was only about a month ago because my body was going into septic shock in the hospital. And I realized I had more time. I had more time to enjoy things and smell the roses and to experience things and love my family even stronger and better, love my wife even better, do more things spend more time with my kid, most of my kids are adults, but I have one that's only 12 right now, so spend more time with them. But I thought I didn't have enough time. I was doing those things, but at the higher level, I had even gotten a higher level than what I was before because I realized, I do have the time. See, we can make time for the things that we're passionate about. And I think that people have this concept that there's not enough hours in a day and I'm already too busy. When you really analyze it and you really come down to it, you can always find more time. It's just a matter of reorganizing priorities. And the priorities, you put those ahead of the things that aren't priorities. And when you do that, you'll find that you can get to the things and tackle the things that are more important in your life.
Yeah. You talk about family, and there was an incident that you had because you had an experience, extraterrestrial, other life form, other life being. You had an encounter one day sitting on your couch watching television, and these other life forms came through the wall.
Yeah.
You were married, you had children.
I was married at the time. I just started over, obviously, but my children, my kids were teenagers at the time. One was actually, 2 of them were actually preteens. But yeah, I was working on this huge project called Fort Terra Nova, another project you can look up. It was on the History Channel. I built an underground city in Northwest Georgia, and not too far from here, actually, in case of a disaster. It's about the size of 3 Walmarts. And I'm bringing that up because I was working on this project at the time, and I think somehow that might be linked to this visitation.
Oh,
maybe.
yeah.
And the reason why I built this project was in case of a geological or global disaster that I predict may happen sometime in the future due to, not war, but geology. And so maybe that has something to do with it. I'm not sure, but it happened during that time period. It's around 2010 is when the project started. It didn't complete itself until 2013. But then 2010, after a hard day's work on this project, I'm sitting in my house. I'm just watching ESPN, getting some sports updates around 9 p.m. I usually don't go to bed till like around 11, 12-ish, at that time. So I wasn't tired or sleepy or dozing off, but the room turned to a lavender color, and the TV went down, and I thought my kids were playing a trick on me, my boys, because there was a split floor plan. They were over my left shoulder. I look up, nobody there. When I turn around, 2 beings were in my face, and I just call them beings. They looked like what you might see on TV as a gray alien, although they were slightly different than that. The eyes had these covers. They were almond shaped, but they had these, I call them covers. They really didn't look like eyes. It looked like some type of protective gear to me. Slit for the nose, slits for the mouth, slits for ears, little dangly hands. And whatever they were doing to me was making my brain shake. And it was a very strange experience. There wasn't words like me and you were talking now. It wasn't me psychically hearing anything from them. It was something that was literally making my brain vibrate in my head, and it was traumatic. I just did some trauma release work on this. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to talk about it without crying anymore. I just got through doing a full trauma release session, psychiatry, psychotherapist. I've been working on myself because this thing really breaks me down pretty bad. You can see older videos of me being broken down.
This is like 14 years later.
Yeah. And recently, even a year ago, I was still breaking down. My treatment on this just started happening. So I'm getting a little better. Like I feel it inside, but I'm controlling it a little bit. But, and it was a very scary experience. I was screaming, but no sound was coming out. So nobody in the house could hear me. My wife at the time was in the house. My daughters were in the house. Everybody was there. Nobody could hear anything. Nobody heard anything, they said. And then they turned around and they just kind of dangled away. They didn't walk like a normal person. They kind of almost like bounce Very strange experience. They went
And
through
you
the
said
wall.
they went through the wall.
They went through the wall.
Yeah.
When that first happened, I thought maybe that could be a dream. Maybe it could be a weird experience that I had. But after this happened, I started studying science. That's when I got into quantum physics. And I began to realize that solid matter is an illusion, that if you can match the atomic frequency of any object, you can pass right through it. If I can match the atomic frequency of this microphone, I can pass my fingers right through it. This is real peer-reviewed science. So they must have had some type of technology. It wasn't magic. And after that happened, this phrase kept burning in my mind: worldwide telescope, over and over again, thousands of times. So I finally went to my computer and I went to excite.com, which is the competition for Google back then. Google wasn't the big name yet.
No, yeah.
Yeah, you had them and a few others. But I went and I typed in worldwide telescope, and the first search result was worldwidetelescope.org, and I almost fell out of my chair. This site, at the time, you had to download the software and install it for free. It was because it was paid for by our tax dollars and a sponsor. And so I downloaded and installed it. Today, you can still do it, but you don't have to download it if you don't want to, because now we have HTML5. Worldwidetelescope.org. When I logged in, it showed me a panorama of all these different star systems and planets and moons. And it showed me places that we have explored in the universe so far, in our solar system so far. And one of them was Mars. So I said, wow, okay. Mars, click on Mars. Then it had panoramas of Mars: Opportunity Rover, Spirit Rover, so forth. So I said, okay, let me go into Opportunity Rover. I click on Opportunity Rover. I get into that panorama. Now you're from the perspective of what they call the mast cam. You can zoom in, zoom out, pan left and right. It's like you're actually operating a rover, but it's all from stitched together images that had already been copied and recorded through the rover. It's really amazing. You can see almost 3 miles ahead. And I started seeing these things on the desert of Mars that looked like blocks from Peru, that looked like remnants of ancient temples, that looked like other pieces of technology or broken statues. And I'm going, what is going on here? So I go back, I re-verify, I research the site, research the content. This is legitimately coming from, Caltech, NASA, European Space Agency. This is all official data. So now I verify this, I go back in again, and I'm seeing things, and I'm linking these remnant or broken down structures to Earth, what I could see on Earth, what I've seen. And I'm going, this is connecting two civilizations, one on Earth, one on the moon. The same construction technique, got to be the same architect. That led me into ancient texts, because I'm trying to find out more about these ancient civilizations. I was already researching it, but not at the level that I was going to.
Yeah.
It took me down a whole other rabbit hole. And I made a connection in the Epic of Atrahasis and the Enuma Elish, where these beings were working on Mars and on Earth, according to the text, not according to me. And they were building a concurrent civilization, one here and one there at the same time. And the workers were called Igigi, I-G-I-G-I. And these Igigi people were Anunnaki, but they were the working class. So just like if I'm an architect, a master architect, I would hire a foreman. The foreman then goes out and looks for the workers. The workers do the work, but they're not slaves. So these people were doing the actual labor, the Igigi. And the war that almost happened in the Epic of Atrahasis was when these Igigi people said, hey, man, this is too much work. You guys aren't giving us a break. And they claimed that their biggest problem was they had no women. That's the exact claim they made in the text. They didn't have any women. So these were the sons of God from the Old Testament that came down to earth to go to battle against Anu, which was known as the Godhead. The sons of God that went against God, the sons of God that went to battle against God, okay, that became the quote-unquote outcast. This is where it comes from, the Epic of Atrahasis. And they ended up coming to a negotiation, instead of having a full-out battle, about how they would take us and make us do the work. And then they took women and they made it with the daughters of men, which gave birth to the Nephilim. That's also in the Old Testament of the Bible. So all this stuff that's in the Old Testament of the Bible, I discovered the link between Mars, the link between ancient civilizations, and the link between the biblical text talking about the daughters of men, the Nephilim, and all this stuff, all in one tablet called the Epic of Atrahasis, which is in the British Museum. And it blew me away. And then I just dove in deeper. I mean, I went crazy on this text and tablets. And people say, well, how can you decipher this stuff? Well, anyone can, because these translations have been available since the 1800s, thanks to George Smith, and many other incredible scholars. And now today you can go to the UCLA CDLI Online Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative, say that fast 5 times, and you can take a virtual stone off the shelf, a Sumerian tablet stone, drop it into a virtual translator, and read everything for yourself.
Wow.
So you don't even need me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Woo, child. This too much. You're going to have to come back
Yeah.
for a part 2. But
Okay.
I want to end on this. This is the first time I've ever gone this long on any interview. But I have to say this because on page 165 in your book, you say, because most humans are walking around in the state of waking sleep, they are never able to know who they truly are, and therefore they remain unaware of their true motivations and the causal forces which motivate them in their daily choices and activities. When humans cannot determine their true motivations and remain unaware, they lie to themselves, and thus their entire lives are lies.
Facts. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that they're walking around as NPCs, non-player characters in a video game. This is a digital fractal holographic matrix that we're living in. It doesn't take anything away from the fact that we're real, but the method of creation is we're living in a holographic matrix, a matrix made of light. Even what appears to be solid matter, even your body is made of light at the deepest level. And what we are, the illusion of solidity is nothing but light slowed down. So we're living in this matrix that's based on the perception of reality through sensory perception. And that sensory perception, it fools us into thinking things that aren't fully true. We get the illusion of separation, the illusion of individuality, the illusion of what we consider to be solidity. All that's actually not true. At the deepest level, everything is energetically connected and everything is all one. We know that through the double-slit experiment that electrons orbiting atoms are conscious. How? Because the electrons make a conscious decision in that experiment to become a wave of potentials or to collapse into the illusion of digital bits of information. And what does that mean for us? It means that everything exists as multiple potential outcomes. This whole universe is based on something called superposition. Every potential outcome actually exists all at once. But we live this narrow path, this narrow life where we only see a slight sliver, and we believe that everything we're running into, everything that's happening to us is part of our destiny, and this is the way it's supposed to unfold, when there are truly a plethora of opportunities, a plethora of different situations that can unfold.
Yeah.
In the ancient tablets, some of them call themselves the ordainers of destiny, because they had the ability to see the superposition, and they had the ability to analyze which one they wanted to collapse into their reality tunnel. They controlled the collapse of reality based on conscious thought. They understood a formula that I came up with from studying this. It's CT multiplied by A equals M. Conscious thought multiplied by action equals manifestation. So they understood the power of conscious thought, sending their mind out of space and time, seeing the future unfold, finding the one that they want to collapse into, taking action steps to make that a reality, and then manifesting it. And we all have that capability and that power. But again, because we don't know who we are, we don't believe in our true power, we're waiting for outside sources to come and save us. We're waiting for outside sources to come and bless us, not realizing that we are the blessing, that we are the bag, that we are to forgive ourselves, not wait for an outside source to forgive us. When you get to the level where you realize you can look in the mirror and you can forgive yourself for something that you've done wrong, analyze it, break it down, figure out why you did it, how you did it, connect the trauma link to that, and then break that down and figure out how you can never commit that act again, and then you grow from that consciously. Now you've been born again in the spirit, and you'll be born again many times in one lifetime.
You will be born again in many lifetimes. Okay, one word. As we close this out, Billy, one word you are committed to in this season of your life.
One word is growth.
Yeah.
That's continuing to grow, continuing to gain knowledge, just continue to seek and look for more answers, ask questions, get more answers. It's a never-ending journey. And I think that once you stop asking questions, as Einstein says, you begin to die. I don't want to die spiritually or consciously. I want to continue to grow. And I'm hoping that my growth becomes a virus, a consciousness virus that spreads to everyone, and they can begin to see that and they can begin to grow.
I believe it is. You are definitely doing that in this lifetime. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a wonderful conversation. I mean, my brain is doing this. It's just jumping up and down right now. So thank you for sharing your wisdom with our audience today. Vaught Empowers Talks. I know this was a little different because we went way over our normal time, but I'm so glad you decided to stick around and watch this. Be sure to share this with somebody who needs to grow spiritually in their life, to expand their horizons of what life can really be for them. Until next time, eat well, give a damn, move your body every single day. I'm Brandy Harvey. Peace.